Welcome to another episode of The Evolved Idiots. This is Matthew Nathaniel, and with me today I have Lucas Caneda. Thank you for joining me this morning, sir, all the way from the other side of the world.
That's true, but thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you joining me. How are things? How are things going over there? What's it like over there in France right now?
It's pretty good. We are very active, both rugby-wise and business-wise. So it's pretty intense. Very good adventure, very good challenge. Got a big game coming on Sunday. So yeah, nice, very cool. Nice. Thanks.
Yeah. Are things pretty much back to normal over there where you're at?
Well, there's a good amount of people that have been vaccinated, so that helps a lot. They are asking what they call here pass sanitaire, which actually means that you've been either vaxxed or that you had COVID and you have recovered, which allows us to be a bit more free when it comes to doing stuff. There's cases where people that are vaccinated get COVID anyways, so you never know. You do need to be careful nonetheless, but at least we can carry on doing what we love to and not just stay inside like back in days. How about there where you are?
It's interesting that you say that. I'm here in LA. LA's got probably the most strict guidelines maybe in the country. And so interestingly, I think a lot of us would be very happy if, as they're doing there in France, it sounds like where they're taking natural immunity. You know, if you've had it and recovered, then that seems to count. Is that correct over there?
Yeah, it counts like one dose of vaccine. Gotcha. So let's say you had one and you had COVID. Well, that counts for two for at least 6 months, I think.
Gotcha.
Because then they've proved that it starts going down.
Right.
I don't know. It's so weird. I mean, it's just want to, keep going. In one point in time, we need to just turn the page, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm certainly ready for that. Like I said, here it's pretty restrictive. LA, in fact, the city passed a law basically. If you're not current on, well, they haven't even updated it. You just have to be vaccinated at this point. So it could have even been a year ago. But essentially, you're not allowed to go. The unvaccinated are not allowed to go anywhere except like the grocery store and the bank. Other than that, they're pretty much banned from society at this point here.
They're not allowed to do anything.
Land of the free, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about you yourself, because you've got an interesting story. You're involved in a lot of things. Tell me a little bit about your background, because obviously sports have played a huge influence. What was it like? If I understand correctly, I believe you grew up in Argentina. What was it like growing up there as a young kid playing sports? And what's the sports culture there like? Obviously, football is very prominent, but.
Yeah, true. So I did play some football myself, and I liked it, of course. But I'd say the atmosphere, it's not the same. That's why I went the rugby path. And back home, back in Argentina, rugby is 100% amateur. So your focus is just making friends, having fun, learning. It's a different side from sports, right? You're not just focusing on getting a contract or getting a scholarship or, you know what I mean, right? So the focus is different. Ever since I was a kid, you always listen that rugby is for friends, to create a family. This I always call it the rugby family. So nowhere in the world, if you speak rugby, if you played rugby, if you support rugby, and you find someone else that does the same, you immediately connect. It's like you speak the same language. That's something very interesting, and I don't think that happens as much maybe on other sports. And I've been back in Argentina till I was 25. It was in 2015. My dream was to become a professional athlete. I wanted to at least try for one season to focus 100% on doing rugby, and just that. So I was kind of doing it when I was back home because I did train, not like a professional, but almost. But I had to, at the same time, I was studying in university and I was also working. So it's not as easy. And then back in 2015, I had an opportunity to come to France to play professional rugby. I took it. I mean, I've been working so hard to get that chance. So that made my decision a lot easier. Thankfully, of course, I was supported by my girlfriend at that time, my wife today, also by my family. I mean, they were all happy that I was able to pursue my dreams, right? So the impact and the change was not that hard. But yeah, ever since that time, I stayed in France. I kept playing. I've been playing professionally for 6 years already. But at the same time, I've also asked myself the question, is there not something else that you would like to do in the meantime? I mean, it's not just about sports, but also taking all your experience, let's say, on the sports side into something else. So I did my first year purely focused on rugby. And then I had 2 or 3 years where I studied. I made a management career while I was playing. And after that, I decided that I wanted something else. I wanted to involve myself into the working space, let's call it, into actually being into business. And that's how I joined Unicorn 2 years ago. And been working on this duality of playing professionally and working at the same time.
Sounds challenging.
Yeah, but what's life? It's not challenges, right?
Very true. Very true. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I grew up playing sports, and it's really became ingrained into my life. Obviously, I never progressed as far as you have, but it still had a huge impact on my life and kind of how I am and how I look at things. And I think for me, you know, I realized very early on, sports is one of the things that I think made me realize, you know, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not this, I'm not the best anything, but there's a lot of people out there that aren't willing to work as hard. And so, like, you know, I really have leaned into that, and that really, the competitiveness really drove that sports created. And I think if there's a certain aspect that if you play sports as a young person, that kind of becomes part of your personality to some extent, that competitiveness. And it translates, I think, very well into people who do seek challenges. They don't always seek the most smooth, easy, proven path. You know, they kind of look to blaze their own trails and do their own things and kind of take that over. Can you talk a little bit about how that has influenced, you know, the transition and, you know, even did you have any, you know, entrepreneurial business inclinations when you were younger, or is this something that kind of just developed as you were thinking, you know, there's something more that I want to try and do?
So, yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with you. And the things that you've mentioned are things that I talk about every single time, because I do think there's parallelism between sports and business, which is huge, and there's lots of connections. And as you said, I think that who I am today, it's, of course, a lot of influence from sports, from playing team sports, basically, because I do think there's a lot that you can work around that on leadership, on motivation, that I think it's crucial to any business. And also I really like what you've said about that competitive spirit. I've always seen myself as someone who hates to lose. So I really, really want to win. And I get angry even when I lose, no matter what I do.
Yeah.
And some people think that that's a flaw, but I see as something completely, it's a very powerful force that drives you. At least that's what happens to me. I do think that winning mentality, I call it, because always wanting something more, always wanting to succeed, to perform, to win, drives you to, as you said, work to get where you want to be. And it's interesting how you said it. I mean, I was always told I was not big enough to play professional rugby. Always. And that, I mean, to me, that was just, I mean, I want to prove you wrong. Yeah. I'm going to do everything I can to prove you wrong. And that's what I did. I mean, it does not always work, but at least I'm going to try. I'm going to try and do everything I can to make it happen. If not, okay, I'll feel confident that I've done everything that I could. But as you said, people need to be to recognize that you need to work to get there. I mean, things do not come for free. And the same happens in business. The same happens in life afterwards. I think that lesson is very important. And I was happy to have that lesson through rugby, through many different situations where you need to roll up your sleeves and get to work. I'm not a big fan of fitness, of running, for instance. During the preseason, okay, so I'm so sad to tell you, but you need to run. I mean, there's no other way. I was like, okay, shit. I mean, I need to do this. If I want to be fit to play, I'll need to do it. Even if I don't like it, you roll up your sleeves and you work and you get it done. And at the end of the day, the reward is that you're going to be playing your games better. You're going to perform. And you're going to get wherever you want to be.
Yeah, I kind of look at that. I kind of think about it as like a fire that's burning inside, and some people's fire is a little brighter than others. And if your fire gets out of control, it can eat you. It can burn you alive. You know what I'm saying? Like some people don't know how to control and direct and focus that competitive spirit, that fire that burns within them, and it just kind of burns out of control. And you see them maybe go reach real high apexes, but they don't stay there very long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
But I think you touched on something else that's really important there is that, you don't always succeed.
True.
You try a lot of things, and some of the most successful people I know or that I've spoken with ever, they failed many more times than they've actually succeeded, but they keep that. It's that drive to keep going and keep trying that really makes it happen eventually for them.
That's true. I read one phrase once that says that a person that succeeds is a person that has lost but tried one more time. So I mean, it takes. You don't know how many times it takes to succeed, but I mean, you don't know when it's coming. But if you keep going, eventually it'll come. And one of the things that I always talk about is that the difference between business and sports is that in sports, one team wins, the other one loses. The beauty about business is that we can all succeed wherever we are on our space. We can succeed, and we don't need to win against someone. You just need to fulfill your objectives, whatever those are, and we can all be successful.
Yeah, that's true. There's definitely more room. But I still know a lot of people in the business world that very much see if they're not at the very top, everyone else is their competition, which makes for a very interesting business environment in companies like that. What about this transition of going from, first of all, let's talk about being a professional athlete, because I'm a little bit curious. What was that journey like for you? You said it wasn't necessarily, it was just amateur. It was like a team sport in Argentina. How did you get that break? What broke you through into that? You said you took a year and really focused. Was that your first pro year, or was that prior to actually signing and going pro?
No, that was actually my pro year, but I took the decision that I wanted to become a professional athlete a couple of years ago. I don't know, 4 or 5 years before that. So I said to myself, if you want to become professional, you need to do as much as you can as a professional player to get there. So I was training 4 times a week, plus whatever trainings we were making with the team. I was eating well, sleeping well, recovering well. If I had to choose to go out or sleep for a game, I would sleep. Little details, what I like to call them, because in my opinion, there's no one thing that makes you get there, but it's the summing up of little details that can actually bring you into better shape, better recovery, that you can keep turning games one after the other. And so I had a couple of good years. You start getting the visibility that you need to get a contract outside. And eventually, if you keep adding good years after years, usually good things come.
Yeah, and like you said, it takes a lot of little things. Even for myself, I haven't played. I've only played for recreation and fun for decades now. At my point in life, but I still stay real active, and I try to take care of myself and eat well, and people are like, well, why do you still train like that? And for me, I think it's two reasons. One, I think for me, it's cheaper than therapy. Like I feel so mentally refreshed and just positive after I've had a really intense, hard workout where I've really, like you said about running, like, man, I don't want to do this, and you're hating it while you're doing it. But once it's over, I just feel so much better. I think that's part of it. But like when you get into all those little details, now maybe more important than ever for people to be healthy and have a strong immune system with everything that's going on. Can you talk a little bit about like what was your diet like before, and like what did you shift it to during that that intense training period? Like what does a professional athlete, what's their diet like?
I think there's many different theories when it comes to diet. I do like nutrition, so I kind of research myself pretty much everything that I do. And yeah, when you are a professional, you tend to eat a little bit more in terms of quantities, because you are using more energy. But at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of the theory that says that your body it's maths. So you add up what you take and what you consume. And if you're taking too much, then you gain weight, you gain fat. And if you are spending a lot more than what you're eating, then you're losing weight. And then, of course, it comes into, you need to check what kind of food are you eating, because if you're eating 100% fat, of course, whatever you're doing, you're just adding fat to your body, which is, in my opinion, not productive. So what I usually like to focus on is to get my proteins well. I do have an intake of around 2 grams of protein per kilo. And then you double up on carbs and you half that up on fat intakes. That usually gives you a good number. It's pretty easy, and I don't measure it every day. What I do is I just take one, example day for me. I just measure one day around, and I see if I'm around those numbers. That's it, and I just keep eating regularly as good as I eat, because I'm also a believer that if you just concentrate too much on that, there's no escape, and then you just get burnt out and you just cannot stand it, and you won't do it anymore.
One of the biggest things, I talk to people who are oftentimes trying to figure out how to get their diet more in balance like that. And the thing they seem to struggle with most is their protein intake.
True.
Do you supplement with protein, protein powders, protein bars, these kind of things to help get that protein amount that you're looking for each day?
I do, but I do it I like to call it in a smart way. So one of the things that I found out that was pretty bad for muscles, again, in one of the theories out there, there's hundreds of different theories, right? So I'm based on one theory that says your last meal, your dinner was, I don't know, I take dinner at 8 o'clock in the night, and then you go to bed, you go to sleep, and probably you wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning. you go for breakfast, and you had almost 11 hours without taking anything to eat. That means your body had not received any protein intake either. And for me, and on my diet, usually people in Argentina do not have protein on their breakfasts. It's just not common. We don't take eggs, we don't take bacon, we don't take meat. We just take, toasts, some milk. Yeah, you've got some protein, but not enough.
Right.
So what I do, because I'm not used to having a lot of protein in my breakfast, I take a protein shake in the morning. First thing I do, just to cut it off. I mean, so your body has been sleeping for 11 or not 11 hours, so has not had any food for 11 hours. Okay, protein shake first thing in the morning, get it running. And that's the first thing I do. And then during the day, I usually do not take any more. The only exception is whenever I go to the gym. After the gym, I do take another protein shake, but that's it.
Yeah. Interesting.
How about you?
I definitely supplement. I try to hit, and I don't know how this equates to your 2 per kilo, but I try to make sure that I'm doing somewhere close to 1 gram per pound.
That's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close, I think. And so, it is challenging, and I use the powders a lot. I usually take a shake a day, and then I also have a little special recipe that I make oatmeal out of, and I use some vanilla protein powder in that, and that just mixes really well with fruit taste wise to me. So
yeah,
that I
do pancakes myself.
The pancakes.
Pancakes with eggs and oats. I mean, you get the proteins and good carbs in. It helps.
Yeah, for sure. What is, do you eat breakfast normally before you train, or when do you train? Do you train in the mornings, in the evenings, or just whenever you can?
No, we usually train in the mornings and in the evenings. So yes, I do take breakfast before I train. I really don't like fasting before training. I know there's a lot of hump, let's say, on fasting these days, but I'm not a big fan. I do feel my body, carving for food after 3-4 hours. I just starve. So I listen to my body a little bit. If I'm fit, I don't need to change my habits that much because I feel my body pretty good. So I stick to what's working and what have been working so far. I do understand that some people like to try it or like to try different things, but not in my case, at least.
Yeah, and like you said, there, by no means should anybody take anything we're saying like as the law when it comes to diet or training or any of that, because everybody is different, and what'll work for one person may not work for another, and vice versa. And so, but yeah, I'm right there with you. If I get up really early to train, like if some mornings before work, I'll get up 4 or 5 in the morning and get it in. And if I haven't, if I ate right before I went to bed, sometimes I won't have breakfast before I go, or really have anything before I go. But if it's any later than that, and it's going to be any kind of intensive workout, like, yeah, man, you just start to feel it in your body. You feel a little weaker, like or at least I do. I don't know.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I just can't. I feel not useless, but pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not getting as much out of the workout as I should be getting out of it.
Especially after the 30-minute mark, something like that, you start to fit it down.
Yeah, for sure. So what kind of training routine do you typically have?
On a typical week, what we do is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, we've got gym and a small field session. Usually not that much running on that field session. And then at night, those 3 days, we have our big field session, an hour and a half, let's say. There's always one video, at least 1 or 2 video sessions before the trainings at night. We play Sundays around 3:00. And then we've got 2 days of recovery, which are Mondays and Thursdays. we go to the swimming pool on Mondays, and we've got our kine physiotherapist available to us to recover after the games, and same for Thursdays. And then Saturdays is just completely off for everyone.
Yeah,
that would be a normal week.
How do you all? What is the weight training specifically like? You said you do it before you actually do the field training, so that makes sense to me that you kind of do the strength training and then go into the field. What do you do specifically? Is it more high reps or is it actually going in and trying to gain muscle?
Well, we go for heavy and explosiveness. Yeah, it's a good balance and pretty hard to achieve actually, because they don't go that well one with the other. So, yeah. But yeah, a good coach manages to get you into a good physically strong enough, and it develops your explosiveness at the same time. There's also a big focus on mobility to avoid injuries, preparation, core. So, same with football, American football, you do need to have your whole body strong to actually stand up hits and keep going, avoiding to go into the ground as quickly, trying to break tackles. I mean, you need to have a good balance, a good whole body strength.
One of the things that's always fascinated me is that both rugby and American football are very rough sports, but in kind of different ways. For a long time, I felt like American football was actually safer because you had this helmet on and it was protecting you and all this, but a lot has kind of come out about CTE and concussions from that sport in particular. And in fairness, if you watch the two sports, it is the hits are lined up a little bit differently. I will have to admit. But what kind of precautions? I noticed that in some of yours, you wear something on your head, and some of the other players don't. Is that for concussion prevention?
Yeah,
or
pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I myself, I used that helmet because I had a couple of concussions when I was small. And actually, my mom was the one that took me to rugby in the first place when I was 5. But that day she came to me and very serious, and she said, "I've got 2 options for you. So the first option is that you quit rugby." I was like, "Okay, let's go to the second option. Option B. Let's. And option B is that you actually use a helmet whenever you play." I was okay, easy decision. I'll just take a helmet because I mean, it helps. It will not avoid every single concussion, but it will help. It will make them less important, less serious.
It's not a hard helmet.
It's not a hard helmet. No, it's like having an extra protection, but just, I mean, it's not that hard.
It's just a little bit of cushioning.
Exactly. So if you get a big hit, it will knock you down. But
yeah. Is this something that's a pretty significant problem in rugby, that as far as concussions in general? Yeah,
there's a big effect lately because there's been, of course, more and more. The game has developed so much in the last, 10, 15 years. We are averaging actual game time of around 30, 35 minutes sometimes. It can go up to 40. It's actual game time. And I think back in the day, it was just 20. So the time has doubled. So the bodies are much more into contact than before. The fitness preparation from everyone is not the same. Everyone's fit now. Everyone goes to the gym. So yeah, of course, the hits are a lot stronger, but you are also in a better position yourself. But yeah, and there's more awareness than there used to be back in the day. So they are trying to not change the rules, but adapt a little bit, especially on the kids, on the lower divisions where you can, I don't know, try to avoid or being a lot more severe with the sanctions when it comes to high tackles, for instance, because the worst hits that we can get on rugby, you get a shoulder or your face, and that's just KO, right? That knocks you down. And then the other issue that you cannot fix is when you get a knee straight into your head. There are techniques to avoid that. It's not always easy to do them, but yeah, there's a rule that you learn from when you're a kid. I'm still trying to learn it, but don't tell everyone. So you should be putting your head on their ass, let's say, so on the back, never in front of the knees, because that's when you get knocked out.
Yeah. I imagine that's not always possible when you're in the middle of falling down or running or.
Oh, wait a second. Come on, stop a minute.
Turn around.
On the right place. Come on. It's not perfect.
Well, rugby being kind of a rough sport because, every sport has its challenges. I'll admit that. But I think there is a difference between playing a sport like rugby and playing a sport like golf, and what you may learn from it. What are some of the things that you've learned from, rugby that's just different than other sports to you that you've kind of picked up and taken into this next phase of your life?
For me, rugby, I call it the family of rugby. Rugby is my home. It's my family. So how to explain this? So the feeling that you get when you are talking to your people, again, no matter where they are, you just understand each other. It's like if you speak the same language, right? We're speaking English here. And I guess if someone from Latin America comes and they speak in Spanish or Japanese and they start speaking Japanese, they won't understand each other. But I would bet that if they all played rugby, there was a way to understand each other and have a laugh, have a good time. And I think that's on my essence, right? That's where I come from. And also, I do talk about two things that are very important that I've learned through rugby. There are motivation and leadership. I think every team needs leaders that motivate their people. And why do I speak about this? Because there's different ways of motivating people, of leading people. I'm a big fan of leaders that do lead by example. So
yes,
actually showing you what you need to do because I'm doing it myself and it's working. I think probably the best rugby team in history or in the past, 10, 15 years has been the All Blacks from New Zealand. And one of the things that I found the most interesting whenever it comes to one of their games is that they can be, playing a decent game. They're never bad, of course. They are the best team in the world, but sometimes they're just there, and eventually you see one guy that makes a huge tackle. Next minute, you see the guy next to him, boom, breaking the line, scoring. And that turns into the snowball effect that everyone gets, motivated. And because one or two guys just said, okay, let's show what we need to do. Let's stop talking and let's actually do it. And I think that's very powerful in sports, but also in business. So that synergy and that connection between both, I really love it.
Yeah, I cannot express how much respect I have for leaders. And I will also say that these are two qualities and two things that we need in real life too, not just on the sports field. We need leaders that are going to get stuff done and not just talk a big game, but it's something that, when I was a very small child, my grandma, I remember she used to do things with me and a lot of it was work related chores and things like that. And she was like, I'll never ask you to do something that I'm not going to be willing to do myself. And that has always kind of resonated with me. And it's something that I find myself disappointed in a lot of leaders today because or at least the ones that don't seem to have that background or that willingness to like, get in with the rest of the workers and like, let's get the shipment out, or like whatever it is that needs to be done.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Just let's do it. And I think that makes them also much more relatable. Like the average person, anybody feels like they're connected. If that person can do it, then we can do it together, and it just changes the whole dynamic. Like you said, it's such a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Totally agree.
So let's talk a little bit. What made making the switch from well, you're not really switching, you're still continuing your pro career. But you've decided to expand your repertoire into this business world. What is it like, for you when you said you wanted to do this? What were people's reactions, and how have people taken to this sports guy coming into the business world with his competitive spirit?
Well, many take me for being crazy because how much time do you have? For me, it's easy, I would say, because both of the things that I'm doing right now, they are my passion. So I have that fire inside me that you were talking about to do both things, and that makes it easy. We all know lots of people that never find their passions, that they just go to work from 9 to 5. I've got nothing against that. But having that passion that allows you to push further and take the extra mile, that makes the whole difference to me. And in this case, I'm doing both my passions at the same time. So, it's not going to stop me, right? Quite the opposite. If I need to dedicate more time, I'll do it willingly, because I love what I do. I think that's pretty much the biggest difference. And that's what I try to tell the people that say, how do you do it? Well, it comes naturally. It comes easy because I love what I do. And if you manage to find that motivation inside you, the same will happen, I'm sure. Because like for yourself, I'm sure that you love what you do. And that's why you keep doing it and you do it so well. Of course, it's a dedication. You need to spend time on it. It's not, again, nothing comes for free. But if you do what you love, the challenge and the adventure it's one that you're willing to take. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's one of the most important things that any individual could probably do for themselves is find something that they enjoy doing and figure out how to make a little bit of money at that. Like make that passion, like make that your thing. And I think the other thing is also, like, at least here in the US, like there's always been this idea that you go to graduate high school, you go to college and graduate, you get out, you get a good job and you work somewhere and you stay there for 20 or 30 years. Or that was always the general thought of the American dream. But I think people have started to embrace, and I think, there's a lot of anxiety for many people that aren't comfortable with it. But I think it's okay to embrace this idea that you could go do something for 5 or 10 years. And then, if you've got another passion, something else you're passionate, you can have more than one passion in life. It's okay to diversify and try a couple, 3, 4, 5 different things. I think that's, it's one of the frustrating things to me about people who say that they wouldn't want to live for, a few hundred years, or they get bored with life, is like, there are so many things in this world that I would want to try that I know I'm never going to even have the time to even attempt, little less get good at. So yeah, I totally get that. So let's talk a little bit about that first venture. You mentioned, I see CX Sports behind you, but you also mentioned Unicorn. Which came first, and which should we touch on first?
So Unicorn came first. I joined the rugby team here in Sarla because Unicorn, it's an incubator accelerator, and we actually took over the rugby club, and we call it the 118-year-old startup. So, and that's how the connection was perfect for what I wanted to do. So actually working with startups, working on that space, and playing rugby at the same time. And through Unicorn, we founded, you see CX Sports on the back. That's actually let's call it the marketing name. So that's the part of the brand that we are building. The legal company, it's called ChallengerX. It's got two places. So it's got one part in the UK who is actually, we are floating into the Aquis Exchange in the next couple of weeks. And then we've got the French subsidiary. That's where day-to-day business happen. So what we are doing is we're taking what we've done for Cello Rugby in terms of branding, in terms of image, and a big focus on monetization. And we are offering that to the rest of the clubs out there, not just rugby, not just in France, so anywhere in the world, no matter what language, no matter what sport. And it's growing very big. The beauty is that every club is facing the same problems. We are getting the opposite message. They are coming to us and asking us, how can we do what you've done? How can you help us achieve where you're at? Not just in terms of social media, that, for instance, we've been, we had 1,500 followers 10 months ago, and we've just breached the 150K.
Wow.
We've created our own TV station, salorugby.tv, and we had over 100,000 people watching our games live, unique users. We developed a whole sponsorships programs that actually offers something to the companies that will support us. So we are giving them the visibility that they need to develop, targeting on the markets, building campaigns that are actually useful for them. And we've went from zero budget in international sponsors to 1 million in 12 to 18 months. So those things, again, with a big focus on monetization, is what we've been focusing on. And this is what we are bringing to everyone else. And we've got at least 20 to 30 requests every day. How can we work with you? Can you help us? Because most of the teams are struggling. And our approach is a bit different than the others. So we are focusing on the amateur level. Our solution is free. So that's the first difference, and probably the biggest. So a club comes to us and says, okay, I want to work with you. Okay, it's free. And even when we approach them, so this is what we can do for you. You get all this for free. We just work on a commission base. So if we make you earn money, then we get a small piece. But if we don't, you lose nothing. As soon as you go that way, they're all in because they've got nothing to lose. And they've got so many difficulties right now. And again, COVID made things worse in terms of monetization. You see so many clubs crashing in terms of financials. And this is a way that we can actually help them bring value to what they're doing out there.
Yeah, I think, for listeners in the States, we don't have a strong amateur semi-pro sports level here, not too much. It goes, straight from college into pros, you get drafted, but not everybody and not every league in the world is the NFL or the NBA with exclusive TV rights and all this, or even the Premier League, with exclusive TV rights and all these things. There are a lot of clubs out there, and I was fortunate to be able to travel a little bit and spend a couple years overseas, and being exposed to that. There's a lot of teams, a lot of clubs over there that are kind of at this level where they're, like you said, they're amateur or they're semi-pro, but they're not quite all the way there, and they're struggling. And obviously, I think COVID certainly could not have helped those situations, and it really does force them into a thing where, if they've went a period of time where maybe they haven't been able to even hold games, or they've had to hold games with limited capacity for attendance, it's right. You're feeling a need through this company, through your services, to really help them reinvent themselves and keep themselves relevant, and even, as you mentioned, grow their branding and grow their exposure. What tell me a little bit more. Obviously, you can come into a club and branding is something you can obviously help them with. Social media, something web. That's all, SEO and all those kind of things are things that you can do. But tell me a little bit more about this, the TV situation, like getting games on TV. Is this on an actual broadcast network, or is this done over the web, or how is this done?
All of those things at the same time. Actually, for instance, we created for Salary Rugby, we created our own channel, so we can control everything that happens on it. But we also signed around 60 different contracts with TV stations, streaming stations, mobile apps that will syndicate our content. I think that, for instance, in the States, we've signed Win. And what do they get? They get our content regularly, well produced, because we've got a whole team inside that will deliver the content every single time. And then we get an exchange. You just cut off a deal that makes sense for both sides. The idea, again, is same with sponsorships, is creating that win-win situation where you can both benefit. This makes no point to go, a little bit the old ways of, hey, can you give me some money? Yeah, but what are you going to do for me?
Right.
For me, that's just simple relationships. You need to create a good relationship. You need to have that win-win situation where both sides can achieve their objectives in a much easier way by working together. That's what we've done on the TV side. Of course, we would not be in a position to give TV exposure for every single team. It depends on the size. It depends on what is it that they want to achieve, because not everyone wants to be seen on TV. But
they don't.
Not everyone. I've talked to many of those who are, in a space that they are comfortable. They want to, yes, increase their monetization a little bit, but they don't have those aspirations of becoming, the next Los Angeles Lakers. There's but yeah, that's something we will work. We would have on our platform, we have tools that allow every single team to monetize. And then from that baseline, we can upgrade into different methods, into more exposure, more visibility. We would go even right after NFTs. There's plenty of stuff to do, to work with.
Yeah. Is what you're doing with the monetization aspects of it, is any of that dealing, you mentioned NFTs, or any of that dealing with crypto or any of those aspects?
There is an aspect on social tokens too. Yeah.
Okay.
We call that the 3 to 5% of the teams, because not every team is in a position to make that worth their time and their investment. But yeah, this will definitely be teams that are or leagues or that you can actually tokenize. There would be social tokens, which is a big difference. So they're not security. You do not own a piece of the company. You just participate. The good thing is that you can get a lot of benefits by doing that. Like, for instance, you're a big fan of whoever that plays at your team, you could get an interview with him if you own a certain amount of tokens, for instance. You can do stuff that goes beyond the regular, you can buy a jersey, but what if that jersey can have your favorite player, number and signature on it? I mean, that makes a difference.
That makes all the difference. I mean, if you're just telling me that it's going to buy me a jersey or some clothing, from the team store, well, I can go buy that with regular money. But if you're giving me something that I can't get anywhere else, that totally changes the perception of it for sure.
And that's the market that we build, and you need to build it. You need to spend a lot of time with that team to make it happen, because it's personalized, it's customized. You need to work it through. But there is much of that process that's being automated by ourselves. For instance, the minting of the token, it's being handled by us. And we work with their team to create everything that's happening. Same with NFTs. We can create the NFTs for the clubs. We can synchronize with the tokens on that case. There's a lot of work that can be done for teams, depending on which tier, let's call them, on which tier they are, and how much exposure they want to get.
And so this is what we've been talking about up to this point has been CX Sports.
Yeah, that's the name for the clubs, let's say.
Gotcha. But the overall vision or organization is Unicorn, this incubator that has all this structure behind it that's kind of overarching. One of the things that I was really intrigued about, and I want you to tell me more about this as well, Unicorn in particular. But as I was going through the website for it, one of the things that kind of struck me is that is the selling point of it not being in a big city. Like everybody wants to be in a big city because traditionally, I guess that is where things have happened. But I think, there's a real shift, at least here. I don't know if it's over there as well, which is why it struck me, I guess, is because there's a real movement where people are kind of reevaluating whether it's worth living in a big city or not, to be quite honest. And if there are, incubators like this in other places, I think it definitely creates a different kind of opportunity for the right person.
It's great that you bring that up, because actually, Dom, the founder of Unicorn, he lived in LA for 25 years. He's French. He went there when he was young. He lived in LA for 25 years and he got sick and tired. Yeah. That's why he came back to France. He has done, him and his wife, they visited like 54 different little towns in France, made themselves a secret list. And Sarlat actually was top 3 on both lists. That's how they ended up here. And exactly what you just said, the idea is to show people that we can do business anywhere. In this case, in Sarlat. You can come here, you can have an ecosystem of companies that will help you out, that would accelerate and incubate what you're doing, depending on the stage that you're in. And you can be successful no matter where you are. And instead of paying 50K rent in London, you can pay 10 times less in here and get the same results. And our first exit, let's say, was a company called XR Applied. It's AR/VR company that we've been working with since the early innings. So from the seed round, and a couple of months ago, the company was listed in Canada and in Germany. The valuation today, I think it's around 25 million.
What kind of companies do you usually look for? I mean, is this something where you're looking for a particular kind of company to work under this structure here with Unicorn, or is it where, companies just hit you up and say, hey, we want to come here, what's the fee, and they come?
So we do just tech. when it comes to incubation acceleration. But one of our own companies too, which is called Mobcast, it's all focused on customer acquisition, SEO, ASO, and investors relationships. And that's what we really like to do. And on that end, we can work with any sector. We are industry agnostic, language agnostic. In fact, we have more than 5,000 keywords ranked number one today on the App Store and iOS in 17 different languages. So those are the things that we like to do the most. Let's call it the customer acquisition campaigns, marketing campaigns, investor relationship campaigns for different companies, including public companies, because we've done and we are doing lots of those, especially in the US, Canada, and the UK.
I guess my next question would be, what is, for somebody who is maybe always taking the traditional business approach of a startup, where we're just going to bootstrap or get loans and we're going to do it on our own and build the team gradually and pay that office rent somewhere else where they're not in an incubator setup. Can you explain to someone who's only had that experience with the difference that being in an incubator system like Unicorn, really provides as far as the timeline, that we're talking about, because it is an accelerator and it does accelerate. And I think that's just something that is missed on a lot of people, that it's the advantages of being in these situations.
First and foremost, allow me to tell you that first reaction, I think it's necessary. So the people that we would like to work with are the people that show that are doing everything they can to succeed on their own. I mean, we need to have that connection, that understand that the people that we're working with are worthwhile and are not just going to be a headache.
Right.
Sorry to be completely honest, but this is probably one of the first filters that we do, and we filter 9 out of 10 people. And then what I would tell those guys is that imagine that you go into a space where everything is done for you, not to do the things for yourself, but to support you. So whenever you need to launch a marketing campaign, you will have someone or many or a team that will help you work through that. Whenever you need financial help, okay, this is your CPA. Whenever you got a juridic question, okay, we've got our team. So everything goes quick. Mm-hmm. And then what we really do is identify people who are in a phase where they that are ready to explode. And that phase, it's usually where you need to involve a lot more marketing services, where you need to to put a lot more money in. And that's where you need to have a product or a service that's ready, market-wise. And then from that, we can exponentially grow together from that phase. And if you do it alone, how many of those resources would you be able to deploy in such a short notice? How big is your team? Because that's the other question. How big is your team? We've got 65 people working here. So imagine you would have, of course, they are not all for you, but they are here. They can all do something to help you achieve your objectives.
So typically speaking, it sounds like maybe you're looking for a company that it doesn't necessarily have to be big. It could be pretty small as far as the amount of people there, but you are looking to kind of work with companies that are not a fresh startup. They're not brand new. They've got a little bit of a track record. Like you said, they've kind of proven that they can take it to this far, and they've got the grit and the determination and the discipline to kind of see it through, and they just need this help. Is that more accurate? Like if somebody came to you and was like, I've got this idea. I just raised somebody. Yeah, exactly.
You just said the wrong word. No good. I'm sorry. There are other incubators that do it, and I'm all in, but not ourselves. We ask for three things: proof of concept, clients, and proof of investing. We do that for certain reasons, but one of them is to reduce risks. Others is to prove credibility. Mm-hmm. And probably the most important reason is we don't want to waste time on your side and on our side. And what you've described before, that sweet spot is, yes, when companies have already got an MVP that they can use, they have tested, it works, they are ready on the tech side to explode. Okay, let's work together. Let's make that happen. That's our sweet spot, indeed.
Yeah. No, I like that approach. And the reason I asked is because out here, I feel like, and especially I've been in California now for about 3 years or so. And, you know, the Silicon Valley mentality of start raising capital to build an idea, to raise more capital, to sell it before it ever becomes profitable, has sort of kind of like, you know, from that area and the tech industries has sort of like infiltrated the rest of the business mindset to some extent in other industries as well, you know, where you're actually producing tangible goods, which makes it it's a different thing than saying, I'm going to make this app, you know, it's a much different thing. So I actually really like this criteria that you have, because I think it does help certainly not waste either party's time, because I do see that a lot as well. You know, these ventures over here, sometimes it feels like a lot of money will get raised and some people will make a lot of money out of the situation, sure, but a lot of people don't make a lot of money out of the situation. And it'll fizzle out and people will take their respective money and walk away from the situation, and nothing ever really even sometimes gets built out of it, which is super frustrating, I think, on everybody's behalf, except maybe for the ones that are walking away with bags of money. But yeah. So I'm a good point. I'm definitely a bigger fan of having tangible proof of a little bit of a track record, and I think that certainly helps make the success rate much higher as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to the risk. You always take a risk when you're in the startup world, but at least that's a measured risk and not just a blind risk, right? And also, it allows you to identify people that are, again, worth working with, because they've already done it themselves until at least a certain level. If we go back to the leadership example of leading by example, it comes back to that. They've done it themselves. Now they need some help to go quicker, to accelerate. Okay, now we can work together.
So what's upcoming for you? You mentioned you've got some games coming up, but what's kind of on the horizon? Do you have any projects that are in the incubator that you can share with us that are exciting?
Actually, our main focus right now is CX Sports. It's growing very big. We've been in London 2 or 3 weeks ago for our final fundraise to get listed. So we're going public. We are dual listing in Germany. We've got a big event coming in the next in January, probably the biggest sports event ever. And yeah, so our focus is 100%, 95% there, and trying to make a good point of what we've done so far and where we can take everyone else.
Nice. And so, what is the overall vision for you as you move into the future? You're kind of holding this 1 foot in one world and a foot in another world. How long do you think you will manage that? And what do you kind of see the road ahead looking like?
That's a good question, because I ask myself that pretty much.
I just relate because as you get older, the recovery times tend to take a little longer.
True. It's not just that, I would say, but it's actually got a lot of things going on. And eventually you run out of time and you think you're not performing on any side. And that's where you start to ask yourself that question. And also, I mean, there's my family too. We've got a little kid, a little daughter, 1 year and a couple of months. Do want to be a part of. And eventually, I mean, you spend so much time. Whenever I go back home, I go off to trainings. So eventually I'll ask myself that question when the season ends in six months and see what happens. But as you've said, my body is not that young anymore. I feel the hits a lot more.
You're not 30. Are you 30?
31.
Okay.
31, yeah.
Yeah.
But recovering is not the same as when I was 25.
Yeah, 25 is like the sweet spot, man. If you could be 25 forever, the body it responds so well at that age. And 28 is still pretty good, but about the time you start hitting the early to mid 30s, I started to tell a difference at least for sure.
Yeah, same. And I think I've been hitting my body pretty much, so eventually it sends you the bill.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had to transition. You know, I used to do a lot more physical sports and things like that, and you know, I've had to, you know, over the last decade or so, I've worked in a lot of things that I never thought I would. Like I do hot yoga on a regular basis, and I find if I don't do it fairly regularly, like my body kind of hates me.
Yeah.
You know, the saunas really are a big help as well. Like all these little things I never did when I was honestly in my 20s and didn't even think about. I sometimes wonder, you know, how many more miles I could have gotten out of it if I had, you know, done better maintenance back then. So
True. But I mean, so far so good.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well, it's been, I want to be cautious of your time. I know you are super busy. Tell people where they can find you, where they can find out more about Unicorn and CX Sports online.
Sure. The best way would be through LinkedIn. Just Lucas Caneda, LUCASCANEDA. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a great conversation.
Indeed. I'd love to. Thank you.
If you're ever out on this side of the world, feel free to hit me up and we'll do one of these in person.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining another episode of the Evolved Idiots podcast. If you like the content, please like, subscribe. You can follow us anywhere that you get podcasts. Any place, literally any place. If you'd like full video content, you can catch us on YouTube. But if you want uncensored content, you can also check us out on Rumble as well as Odyssey. Until the next time, peace, love, and power to the people.